Hi, my name is Randy Fay. I'm the maintainer of DDEV, which I'm in the habit of always saying is a local development environment for websites. But I'm going to show you today how to use it in the cloud on Gitpod. So let's just take a quick look here. I'm going to show you 3 ways to use it. They're all very simple. But the first way, let's just look at the instructions here. Look for Gitpod using DDEV and gitpod.io. So here's the Gitpod usage. So here's way number 1. We are going to just go to any repository, and so I'm going to use gitpod.com, github.com, drud d9 simple. This is just a Drupal 9 site. There's nothing to it particularly. It does have the vendor directory already built into it. Otherwise, we might have to do a composer install. But that's not required for all the ways that you're going to do this. So we're going to just go ahead and try that. So I'm just going to hit the Gitpod button here that's being provided for me is actually a result of a Chrome extension, but it is just creating a URL. So I'm just going to click on that. And this is the URL that you see right here, gitpod.io, and that just gives the rest of the thing there. So now it's starting up a Gitpod session. This is actually a VM in the cloud. For most of us, this is all free. So this has opened up our repository, and now I'm going to get myself a terminal, new terminal, and I'm just going to install DDEV. That already has Homebrew in here, so I'm going to do a brew install drud DDEV. Nothing about what we're doing now has been set up for DDEV, except that this project happens to have a .ddev folder. That's not necessary. And it happens to have the vendor checked in. That's also not necessary. So we're just going to install this. There may be a couple of places that I'll speed this up so that you don't have to sit there and wait. Sometimes Gitpod starts up slower than other times, and sometimes Homebrew is less fast than we would appreciate it being. But remember, this is a standard, ordinary Gitpod setup. We haven't done anything to it. We're just using a brew install DDEV on it. Yeah, it'll be ready for us in just a minute. It's got a couple of dependencies to do. Okay, DDEV is installed, so I'm just going to DDEV start. And it will do the things that always happen on the first DDEV start, and it'll pull the images that it needs. Again, I might speed this up a little bit, although this is sitting right on the internet, so it's pretty fast. In a later one that I'll show you, this stuff has been preloaded. Okay, so you see it's showing us that there's ports already set up. And so the port 8080 here, which is the default, we can just open a preview on that, and we will have just what we expect. We will be allowed to install Drupal because that's what we had code for. So we could do other things. You see that this is on Linux, and it's in a VM. It's very, very fast installing. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you. You could do a number of things here. You could grab and install a database. You could set it up any way you wanted to. You could run a composer install. Everything's all set up. We could do a DDEV composer install right here, and it would work the same as it always does. So, okay, so I want to show you way number 2. I'm going to just shut down this one here so it doesn't use up my available workspaces. So I'm just going to stop that one. And now let's take a look at doing this with the DDEV Gitpod launcher. So the DDEV Gitpod launcher is explained here. It's very simple, but it's just crafting a URL to get you a ready built environment to where you don't have to install DDEV or anything. So we're going to just click on the link here for the launcher. And this D9 Simple that we're working on is exactly the one that we just tried out. But now it's going to open up, and I'm going to do it without artifacts here, so I can show you with artifacts in a minute. But I'll just say open in Gitpod, and it's going to open this up. So this one we launched out of the box with a pre-built environment. So it went out and got an image that already had DDEV and everything in it. So now that this is up, it's going to come up and already have the thing ready to install. So here it is. DDEV's already installed. Everything's already working about DDEV. I can do all the normal things that I'd want to do. So that's but we still don't have a, oh, we did get a database for this one. Oh, this one has a default database. So this one loaded the artifacts from the default database. So let me show you what happened here. This D9 Simple Artifacts is a repository that contains starter artifacts for us. So it has a db.sql.gz and a files.tgz. And we could have provided those as the default when we did it. The reason that it's putting the artifacts in Git and providing those for you by default is that Git is the thing that Gitpod knows the most about to start out its life. You can use DDEV provider interface and do a DDEV pull, but you had to have already set that up. And so you don't have to set that up if you just throw your artifacts into a repository. And this can, you'll see that this is a public repository, but this can be a private repository because you probably have Gitpod set up to have access to your GitHub and GitLab repositories. So it can be a private repository. So what we did, we went here to the DDEV Gitpod launcher, and we used an empty Git repository, but we could have used anything that we had access to. So we could point to whatever repository has those artifacts in it. So now I'm going to show you the third way. If you go to the Chrome Web Store and look for DDEV, then theoretically we will find DDEV in here. Oh, we don't want to go to the developer dashboard. We want to go to the Chrome Web Store. Chrome Web Store. And in here, we'll just search for DDEV. And this is in the dock, so it's easy to see. There's the DDEV Gitpod launcher. And you can just install it right here. And when you do, it just adds a button like the Gitpod button. So if we go back to D9 Simple here, it adds this DDEV button. And this DDEV button does the same thing as the DDEV Gitpod launcher. So if I click on that, it will open up just the same as if we'd filled in the DDEV Gitpod launcher. So that's it. 3 ways. Take a look at what those ways are. The 3 ways that you can currently use gitpod.io with DDEV. One is just open the repository and install drud DDEV using Homebrew. That's the first way. The second way is to use the DDEV Gitpod launcher, and you can do that with artifacts. And then the third way is with the Chrome extension, which does the same thing as the DDEV Gitpod launcher, but it's there and ready for you anytime that you're on any project. And let me show you, I promised you one other thing Let's look at D9 simple, D9 simple, D9 no vendor. So here's a project that is beyond simple. This has got nothing but a composer.json and a composer.lock in it. It doesn't have a .DDEV or anything like that. And if I just click the DDEV button on this one, it will go out there and it will do the composer install on the way up, and it will do the DDEV config on the way up. Okay, here it is. Now it's doing the composer install for us, doing all the things that were specified in there, and it does the DDEV config for us as well. And then it restarts because now it knows who it is and how it should work. And so we have just launched a whole Drupal 9 site with nothing but a composer.json and a composer.lock. So there it is. There was an artifacts repository associated with this one, but that's all it took. And you see that now in D9 no vendor, we have a .DDEV directory that was created automatically. We didn't even have to do a DDEV config, and we have the vendor directory all set up for us. Here's the vendor directory. It got all the work done for us. So that's it. I hope you'll try it out. Just search the DDEV manual for Gitpod, and you'll see this page, and you can try all those three. Thanks for hanging with me. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.